pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Haslett.
Here.
Alderman Smith.
Here.
Alderwoman Johnson. Here. Alderman Donovan.
Here.
Alderman Jokers.
Here.
Alderman Rainey.
Here.
Alderman Jones.
Here.
Alderman Prince.
Here.
Alderman Wolfen.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Very good, thank you. Need a move for approval of the agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty, that takes us down to a personal appearance. Jamie Inman is going to be here sharing with us about Georgia Fed. Miss Jamie, good to have you. Thank you.
Hello. I'm just going to read this statement. Hello, my name is Jamie Inman. I'm the president of Georgia Fed and have been since November 2010. I'm here tonight to discuss what Georgia Fed does for the city. There was some discussion about the Georgia Fed during the last budget meeting, which was before the last regular Alderman meeting, and we were unaware of that discussion, and that if we would have been, we would have come to answer questions to you all. I will be glad to answer any questions you may have after I finish my statement, and if I do not know the answers, I will be glad to look into that, come back again to another meeting, and address any answers that I do not have for tonight. Georgia Fed has been a fixture in the community for 53 years. It is the largest function as far as tourism is concerned in our community. For the record, we have 7 board members, but 4 that do most of the planning and organization that goes into Georgia Fed. At most of our meetings, the board is the only people who attend. This is only to say that we do not have some assistance that weekend. We love the organizations that help, which we give them a donation. Kinsey Fire Department takes care of all of our trash. The Boy Scouts Troop 150 and 450 help us in many ways. We give them also a donation. Hope Church supplies kids' functions. We also give them a donation. We could not pull off Georgia Fed without them. To all the people who help with the opening ceremonies, from Bill Nagger to Don Rapp, for all the performers that do that free of charge, and it is much appreciated by the Georgia Fed. I also think by the community. We hear very good things of all of the people that attend Georgia Fed. They love to be to the opening ceremonies, so we do appreciate them. I appreciate everyone that helps that weekend. Buck Jokers, an alderman, has always helped me at the openings or at the beginning on Saturday. He gives me 2 to 3 hours of his time, which I could not do Georgia Fed without. Tim Inman, Kelsey Inman, Jennifer Ditch also help me. I would not be able to do what I do for the 2 to 3 hours that they give that time to me. That being said, there are many other people that just do a couple of hours of things that weekend, but we could not do Georgia Fed without them. As far as planning and organizing, there are 4 of us that pull off the largest function that happens in the town. So just to go on with that, we don't do it because we want thanks or anything like that. We do it because we enjoy it. I love Georgia Fed. I have been a part of Georgia Fed with my mother and father being on the board many years ago. It holds a special place in my heart. I hope it does not continue to happen, which is a possibility. Georgia Fed pays for all their own expenses. We pay our own insurance. We pay for the Husky buses. We pay for all the trash removal. We pay CWI to come into town. We take care of the property that we acquired back in 1986. That property was purchased. It houses one of the historic homes on that. In 2016, we acquired the other property, which is the other half of the Georgia Fed quote-unquote Moses Austin property. We maintain all of that property. We take care of the additional house that we got that is on the historic registry with that property. We paid to destroy a house that should have been destroyed many, many years prior to that. It had been abandoned for several years, and I have to tell you, when I went to go tour the house, I could not even make it inside. It smelled so bad. So we paid for the destruction of that property. We keep the upkeep with the purchase of that property from SEMO. Georgia Fed has a $250 scholarship for a lifetime to a student from St. Genevieve County. So that is acquired with them, so that is something that we're giving back to the community. We feel that with all of the events that take place on our property, we never ask anyone for any kind of a donation or any kind of a charge. We pay the electric bill, the water bill, everything that goes on. There are 2 reenactments that happen on our property. We do not ever ask for any money. That is also tourism, things that come into St. Genevieve, people that come in to watch those reenactments. Heritage Days uses our property. The Green Tree Tavern is now open for tours. We allow them to park any buses, anyone that wants to tour Green Tree Tavern, they're allowed on our property for free. We don't ask for anything. We have been saving money with the hopes that the mayor and Martin Toma, I don't know that the aldermen know this information, but if you were on the board for the grant money from the IDC or anything, you would know that we have been saving up with the hopes of making the new acquired property into somewhat of a city park. There is no city park on this side of town. There is no amount of area that has that large of property that can be used for community functions. People want to have family reunions. We more than welcome. People use our property for wedding pictures, senior pictures, everything. We own the bridge, maintain the bridge that crosses over from our property to the main street there. We maintain that bridge. We built it, and we maintain all the expenses that go with that. We are very proud of what we've done and accomplished over the 53 years. We hope that we continue. And going to some questions that were brought up about what Jeur de Fête does for the city. In my free time, I own a business and I work 6 days a week. Up until a year and a half ago, I worked 7 days a week. So in my spare time, I went around to every restaurant, got some information tonight from a couple. I'm still waiting for 2 people to call me back now. Every restaurant, bar, shop downtown, every gas station in St. Genevieve, any business that I thought might have been affected by Jeur de Fête weekend, and asked them what they felt Jeur de Fête did for them. There were several that said that it is their biggest selling day. I went to Casey's, the manager, the person that's been a manager there for 2 years and has worked there 8 years of every Jeur de Fête, said it is the busiest weekend they ever have in the history of weekends of every day of the week. I specifically asked if I could say that Oberle's Meat Market sells 2,500 pounds more of meat. That does not include their Oberle dog and cheese, which is the same amounts that they sell on the weekends of December. So it is brought in that weekend of sales. I called Microtel. They are already 85% booked from year to year. It is always all Jeur de Fête people. They have 48 rooms, which is $96. They make them stay 2 nights a weekend for the weekend of Jeur de Fête, which is $8,544. So that is also tax money that is brought in. Microtel is not booked every weekend of the year, all the time, but they are for Jeur de Fête weekend. Every bed and breakfast in St. Genevieve was booked. Most of them are booked for next year. I call even Wilmar Hotel. They had one crafter person that stayed there for a week. They were already booked, so they could not take any other people except for him, and he stayed the full week so he could go on to St. Charles. I called every gas station except for one said that they were busier. Every bar in St. Genevieve was busier. They said and stated that they were a lot of people that they had never seen. The lady from the Point said it was her best weekend yet since she has just purchased. She said there were a lot of faces that were not, local faces. I feel that Jeur de Fête is probably, I'm going to assume, the largest. I know it's the largest event that happens. I'm assuming that we generate more tax money that weekend of Jeur de Fête than any other weekend that happens in the 365 days that goes a year. I have talked to all the nonprofit organizations that are involved with Jeur de Fête. Valley has said that we are second only to the fair because the fair is 4 days. Jeur de Fête is 2 days. For the work that they put in to Jeur de Fête and the work that they put into the fair, by far, they are making more and doing better at Jeur de Fête. If Jeur de Fête ceases to happen, they do not know what they will be doing because they don't know what is going to happen to them. That was a quote from John Staub, who is on the board of Valley. The Lions Club, it is their largest money-making function for the Lions Club. They will be really hurting if Jeur de Fête does not continue. The Rotary, it's their second largest behind their golf tournament, which takes much more work. I asked them, they wash some ducks, send them down the lake or the river, the little creek, and they're good to go. But it is second to that with way less work. I have talked to all of the nonprofit organizations. They all say that it is very important to them to maintain their organizations. They are also, like us, struggling with people to help. I was told on Tuesday evening by a person that maybe people in St. Genevieve don't know that there are only basically 4 people of the board that pull off this function. We're not asking for a thank you. We just want you to know that we do need help. 3 people on the board are planning to retire. 2020 will be done. If we do not find 3 more board members, I and the other person that pulls this off will not be able to do this by ourselves. I cannot do what I do at my business and do what we do here and take on these positions also. We are guaranteed to do 2020. If we do not find anybody, that will be the end of Jure de Fête, which I hope does not happen. It is, I think, the best function that happens in St. Genevieve. It could certainly happen without me. That's not what we're saying, that Carrie and I, it could not be done without us, but unless we find people to step up, and if somebody else thinks they want to step up and take over Jure de Fête, I am more than busy enough and have more things on my plate and in my life that I would be happy to help train somebody else and they can take over. I got involved because I thought I could do something and that I thought I could help. I understand everybody's busy, but if you're going to be involved, you got to step up and help us because we want Jure de Fête to continue. There was some discussion of what the city does for us. Yes, you do things for us. The police department does police extra. I think it was discussed that maybe around $360 from Eric at that meeting. I in turn called the Gary Roth at the water department. He said it takes about 10 total more man hours than what they already do. I do not know what those people make, nor do I care. You folks know what those people make an hour, so you know what that means. But with just the few items and the people that I told you what money is generated, we get back that 2% tax from this. $8,544 from one place from Microtel for that weekend. I think with 2% could cover some of our costs, and I'm pretty sure with the 2,500 pounds of Oberly dog and other meats that they sell, it could, generate enough money that Jure de Fête is actually making money for the city. So you all know the answer to that. I had found out that you have a quarterly report from the state. In that quarterly report says what every business sells and what they generate in taxes. I'm assuming if we could find out the quarterly report, we could probably find out how much money is generated in August from a month. I did not have time to call the state to ask that question, but I'm still going to, even if one of you all are going to. I'm still going to do that. As far as all the donations, we donate large portions of money that are detrimental to many organizations that we give to. So I just hope that with all of the people that hear this and want Jure de Fête to last and happen, that we find at least 3 people. We have to have 3 people in the city, county, somewhere of St. Genevieve. I don't even care if you're from St. Genevieve. If you're listening to this and you don't live in St. Genevieve and you want to help, come on. But if we get 20 or 30, we will be more than happy to have all the help that we can have. So, and now I guess I'm kind of gone through everything. I'm sure you all probably, a few of you thought I would talk for a lot longer, so you can ask questions now.
Jim,
Yes.
how have your expenses increased over the last 20 years?
I would not know over the last 20 years. Well, they went down, and that can take me to some answers of some questions of, I think there were some questions as to Jure de Fête donating money. So back to that 1986 thing. So I don't know if any of you people know Fran Ballinger or remember Fran Ballinger. A lot of you may not, if you're, depends on how new you are to St. Genevieve. She passed away in 2006. She, at the time, was in charge of tourism and basically paid a lot of her own personal money to keep tourism running. If she went to a function, she paid for it. That was because she had money to give, and it was, St. Genevieve was very important to her. It was something that her family had done, and so she continued to do it. When Jure de Fête dropped down, and there were some, the board back in I don't know exactly what year it was, but before I came on, I think maybe around in the early 2000s, had decided that they wanted to go another route with Jour de Fête. My mom was in charge of crafters for 23 years. When that board voted to change Jour de Fête, she resigned. When she resigned, there were 550 booths here at Jour de Fête. When they made their change, it dropped drastically. I can tell you that in 2010, when I became president in November of 2010, we had 71 booths. This year we had 168. That is not including the 27 alcohol, nonprofit, and food vendors. So we are almost to 200 total, you know. So I cannot answer questions. I can look into that. I can. Well, yeah, I mean, our expense for insurance for that weekend is over $4,000. We pay that. The Husky bus is over $2,000. Granted, we take in, because we do charge $2 a person for the bus, just to try to offset some of that. Well, we, I think, brought in $889. So, you know, we had 400 and whatever people. But when I came aboard, they had 3 buses. We knocked it down to 2 buses, and we saved some money there. We paid the refuse bill for CWI. They give us a discount out of the kindness of their heart. That bill is almost $2,000, $1,500. And then we have the upkeep of the property and the upkeep of the houses, and we pay, you know, to have, because I personally don't have time to mow the yard. I would mow the yard if I had time to save us the money that we spend on mowing, trust me, but I don't have time to do that, and just different things that we have expenses there. We have been trying to save money, because back to whenever I was saying that we had a specific agenda for our property. We want to have a big pavilion put on our property. We want to have a handicapped, accessible men and women's bathroom. We have 20 RVs that we've paid to put in spots. We need to do some ditch work down there. I know that a few of the people here know, because I have gone to them, discussed these things, told them what we want to do with the property. So yes, we have been trying to save money to do these things, which we in turn hope that will add to the community and bring more people, more functions, any more festivals that they tried to do the Scottish Days. We allowed them to use all of our property, our electric and water for that event. That did not take off. I'm sorry that it didn't. And we are struggling to try to keep ours, afloat. So I can look as far back as I can go. I do only know things from November of 2010, because that's when I became president. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You have a meeting scheduled at the cafe for
Yes.
interested parties.
Yes, so we do have a special meeting scheduled. It will not be a meeting about, per se, Jour de Fête. If there are questions asked, we will definitely answer them. Our regular Jour de Fête meeting is always the first Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. at the Cafe Genevieve. Everyone is welcome to come to the meetings. We are having a special meeting this Tuesday coming up, in hopes that we will have people show up, that we can find at least 3 people to join the board. We are looking to have them join the board at this time, because we need to train them in order to take over. Because if we don't have them here to help us with 2020, then I am very sad to say that we won't be able to continue. So we're in hopes that we find somebody that fits with us, that this is an organization that they want, that fits with them. So our special meeting is at 6 p.m. Tuesday at the Cafe Genevieve, and everyone and anyone is welcome. So, but we will not be say having a meeting about Jour de Fête. So if you think you're going to be bored sitting there listening to us talk about things, we're going to explain again what Jour de Fête is, and hope that we can find somebody to come and join us. So, are there any more questions?
How are you advertising for that?
Okay, advertising is a big thing. So
No,
we
I mean
have.
for that meeting you're gonna.
Oh, that's all advertising. We've been in the paper, word of mouth. Carrie went around to the shops, handed out a personal letter to the shops. And this goes back to some questioning too. We handed out a letter to all the nonprofit organizations. We went around to shops, we went around to businesses and told them and asked them. We are not so silly. I think it kind of made some people worried that we were trying to find business people. We know that the businesses that are downtown and the organizations are struggling to find people to help them, that they're going to be working that weekend. But there are many other things that could be done leading up to that weekend. But the board members will have to be readily available for that weekend. They will have, that's just part of what it is. I am, even though I have my business, so that whoever steps up as the board members will have to be there. As a matter of fact, when you said about advertising, I wanted to tell you all that we have a Channel 5, a commercial that runs. That costs us over $4,000 in our commercial, and it runs on Channel 12 now, which costs us about $1,500. Channel 5 has been very good to us because of Tim Conley, got us hooked up with them. They have never raised our rates. They're very good to us. They helped us make a new commercial this year. And in that commercial, it states that St. Genevieve is over 250 years old. So we are plugging, you know, the history of St. Genevieve. It's not just the craft, you know, festival. We're plugging the history of St. Genevieve in our 30-second commercial. We squeezed that in there too. So, and it runs, and they're very good to us. And we were lucky, and it's ran during 2 Olympics, good times, and we have the best prime time commercials. Thanks to Tim and his, you know, he knows some of the people from there. So we have the prime time commercial, and they haven't raised our rates since we made the commercial in 2011, I think was the first year. No, 2012 was the first year that it ran, and it's been running every year. And then we brought on Channel 12 to hit down south about 5 years ago. Channel 5 was nice enough to give us the rights to the commercial so we could pass it on to other channels. So, and we pay for our advertising in the Post-Dispatch. We pay for all of our advertising except for we get a $300 boost from tourism, but every festival gets this, not only us. And back to the money that we do use up from the water department, or from the city street department and the police department. I think that the county fair uses those functions. I think that the Christmas festival uses those functions. I think Heritage Days uses those functions. I think every French festival, every festival in St. Genevieve, I'm pretty sure gets extra policing maybe, and maybe some help from the street department or the city workers. So I'm not really for sure why Jour de Fête was singled out, especially since we bring in the most amount of generated money into the community in the year. So that being said, does anyone have any questions? Because I'm sure you guys are probably tired of listening to me talk.
I'm curious about that meeting. You use social media to
We are. We didn't want to go too far out, and our normal meeting landed on the Tuesday after Labor Day, and we knew everybody was going to be recuperating from their last brouhaha before school starts and everything, so that's why we pushed it off. We are getting, it has been on our Facebook, but I'm personally going to start putting it on mine. I'm not a Facebook person. I put my lunch specials out, but that's about it. So I'm not really, and I also don't want to get into questions and stuff on Facebook because I don't have time, and I don't want somebody to think that I'm ignoring it. So if you send me like a messenger thing about Jour de Fête or any kind of things like that, sometimes it takes me a while to get back because I have, you know, other things. And we try very hard to get back to everybody that asks a question. So up until just a year ago, all 4 of us girls had full-time jobs. So the other 2 are, one's retired now, one is semi-retired. But before that, we all had lives, jobs, full-time jobs, children, everything else to do also besides Jour de Fête. So I love Jour de Fête, so don't get me wrong. I want it to last, and I will stay on indefinitely. So I'm here till I can't walk anymore. If you'll have me, I'm committed. So hopefully, yay.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yep.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Jamie. Thank you.
Okay. Takes us to the city administrator
Okay,
report.
it was not in your packet because I was at the Missouri Municipal League meeting earlier in the week, which I'll talk about at the end of this report. Chadwell Lane is progressing. There was a bit of not a hiccup really, but AT&T had to do some changes to their line that's under the road being raised, and so they couldn't do the work today that they had otherwise scheduled, so the paving is going to be, they were going to start on the 16th, but it's been pushed off a day because they had to wait for AT&T to get their work done. There was talk when we were talking about the renovations to City Hall about the water getting into the basement problem. And we asked Donzie Construction to take a look at that and come up with a proposal. At the same time, Alderman Rainey drew up a request for proposals that were sent out to Woods Basement System and Helitag with a Friday deadline for responding. We never heard from Woods or Helitag, but Donzie submitted an estimate for excavating along the perimeter, this side of the building where the water's coming in, putting in a drain that goes into a sump that pumps into the existing drain that goes to the creek, covering the fabric with a membrane that's designed for waterproofing. It's a self-adhesive mastic, and then putting some boards over, some fiber board over that so that the membrane doesn't get nicked in any way as you're backfilling. And the total cost of that is $29,346, and it will be part of, I guess, the consideration as to whether we include that when we spend money on proceeding with renovations of City Hall.
That was just strictly along this one wall.
Yes, sir. Because that's where the water comes in.
Right. I noticed when we were coming into the meeting and stuff, you know, there was, I guess out by this sump pump out here, there was water coming out, running right back down along the building and pooling, you know, and it hasn't rained in a
I
while.
know, it's that sump is always discharged there, but it was generally discharging and drying up and going away until we had the next rain. It's been continuous. As a consequence, you will notice that algae has been growing, and Gary's been treating it with chlorine to try and keep it down because it gets pretty slick. And they just did it, you know, a week ago, and it's starting all over again. So I can't explain why the groundwater table is so high.
A lot of rain this year.
Yeah.
So when in his bid and stuff to do that, I mean, what corrective measures then in the parking lot?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. There's no reason why that discharge couldn't go into that French drain.
Because is there a sidewalk along here? There's a raised,
It's where they're going to put back the raised walkway as more of a stop for parking than
Right.
anything else.
There's no sidewalk underneath it.
oh, it's not actually a sidewalk under there. But something we might also consider also in one of our paving projects, maybe we need to do a little fill down along through there or something.
Well, Phil would just push the ponding elsewhere. But I mean, it's not sloped. That discharge
Right, that's what it needs to
isn't
be, a
sloped to
slope.
drain to the receiving inlet. In order to do that, you'd have to excavate a ditch, do what basically they're talking about doing, putting in a drain system that'll carry the water to that inlet.
And I know, but with the water pooling out here, it's obviously lower over here than what it is further out in the parking lot, or it seems like it is.
It is.
Right.
And this is lower than the inlet where it should be draining,
Right.
into. So anything that you dig on grade to slope to drain to that point will be too low to get into that box. So you'd have to put in a pump to lift it over.
We're gonna fix it, we need to fix it right.
That would, yeah, I agree. That would have to need to be incorporated in the work.
Any statement of warranty with their proposal?
He said he would warranty his workmanship.
For how long though?
Well,
So,
it's the difference between guaranteeing the outcome.
building committee will get to see that, okay, we'll look at it.
Attended the park board meeting. This was well reported by Mark. They had a presentation from the St. Genevieve Disc Golf Throwers. I didn't know what they called themselves, but that's what they call themselves. It turns out that our disc golf course is one of the better ones in the area, and that the only thing that keeps us from having these rotating golf tournaments is the lack of tee boxes. Now, they did put in AstroTurf tee boxes, but the grass is found that is a good seed bed, so now they're kind of half-assed or grass in it, and it's very slick and not up to their standards. They solicited a donation from a concrete company in Perryville of the labor to create the tee boxes, and they asked if the money that the park board has to spend this year could be used for the materials, $1,700 for the tee boxes, and they thought that was a good expenditure and one that might pay off in attracting people to the city for these tournaments. So I don't play disc golf. People who play it are passionate about it, and I'm pleased to hear that our course is so highly regarded. Gary and the crew has been working on, and he can report on his report as to whether or not they have finished clearing off the grass overgrowing on the walking trail and making it a little more user-friendly. Dave will report on the rental housing committee. Today we had a ribbon cutting for Heavenly Hair, which moved to the house at the corner of Market, not Markey, Market and 10th. And they have done an amazing job fixing up what not too long ago was one of our problem properties. And you remember the list that we had? That was one of them. And now they've fixed up this property. I wish them great success in their business, but the city owes them a debt of gratitude for taking a problem property and making it what it is on one of the main entrances to the city. I talked to people today, although I encourage them to use local resources like the title company. Their lawyer is Armstrong Teasdale, and Armstrong Teasdale apparently had other ideas, so they're preparing the documents for closing with First American Title Company. Armstrong Teasdale also had ideas as to the kinds of due diligence that they should do. So they want them to have a survey, they want them to have a phase 1 environmental, they wanted them to do soil tests. I don't know how long any of that stuff's going to take. People didn't know what a phase 1 environmental was, and I said, you know, we didn't have that done because we know the history of the property. We know what it was before it was developed. We've known how it's been used all the way along, and what phase 1 does is they do the research to discover that history and to determine whether any use could have produced a contaminant that might still be in the soil. So I can tell you that it's not, but go ahead. I can't. Armstrong Teasdale is not going to believe Martin Toma, and so they're doing that, and closing will have to obviously come after that work is done. Surveyor called me today on the Progress Parkway, 2.1 acres. He wanted to know whether or not we had to go through planning and zoning for a subdivision as we're creating this lot. Our zoning order only requires planning and zoning action if you create more than 2 lots. Otherwise, it's treated as a minor subdivision. It's handled administratively, so there won't be any reason to delay. The surveyor will prepare a plat. He'll provide us with a copy. It will go in the county records, and so the lot will be identified for the record that way. We had some talk about the city participating with the levee district on a joint application for FEMA damages. I went to the kickoff meeting. It doesn't look like it's going to work that way. So Sue's preparing the documentation for the city to make an application to recover our cost separately from the levee district. It was reported, and there's a woman and her husband who were hiking or biking from Minnesota to Louisiana, and St. Genevieve is the halfway point for their trek. She was in town. The mayor was working, so I had the pleasure of welcoming them. There was a recent article in the paper, and she's posted on Facebook about her experiences in St. Genevieve, all of which were positive. And her interview with the mayor was prominent among the people she met with, and I think they were favorably impressed and certainly provided a good report about their experience here. You're aware that Planning and Zoning had a meeting regarding a medical marijuana manufacturing facility. What you probably don't know is there were 2 applications made to the state for facilities in St. Genevieve. One was for a dispensary in Country Market Plaza, in one of the vacant spaces there. The other is then for the use of the Grandpa Vision's Soundelier building, Saberliner building. The Planning and Zoning voted a positive recommendation, which will now come to you for your consideration. They have asked to schedule that for your meeting in December. The applicant has. So we were thinking it was going to be September 26th. It doesn't have to be. It can be any time after the 14-day notice. We have to give 14 days notice after Planning and Zoning meeting before the next action, and so we'll be looking forward to having that before you on that December meeting. Finally,
sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
The dispensary does not require a special use permit?
It would require a special.
It would?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And the property owner is aware of that.
I thought, so that area is not zoned?
It's owned properly.
Yeah.
But it requires it's in the proper zone for a dispensary.
Okay.
But when we adopted the medical marijuana ordinance, it required a special use permit for either.
Okay, thank you.
2 questions. So does the public hearing happen on the 12th also?
No, well, Dave, when are you scheduling a public hearing? It has to be 14 days, within 14 days of the...
If they confirm that they want the 12th, then we'll schedule it on the 12th.
Okay.
And I will put a retraction in the paper next week and reschedule it for the 12th.
So our meeting won't be at the KC Hall on the 26th?
No, but probably will on the 12th.
Yeah, okay.
Second thing, the dispensary and the grow facility, that is 2 different parties applying.
2 different parties.
Okay.
I attended the annual meeting of the Missouri Municipal League this week. You know, you go to these things and you spend a lot of hours in meetings, and many times you're sitting there like a planning and zoning meeting. I thought, you know, I could be teaching this one. But there were 2 things that I thought were really two of the breakout sessions that were worthwhile. One had to do with fraud in municipal government, which happens in a number of different ways. And we kind of feel like we all know each other, and everybody's been doing it for so long. And this guy said, don't get too comfortable. Auditors won't pick up on the possibilities of what can happen. Now, we, unlike Dixon, Illinois, where the city treasurer was able to embezzle $53 million over her career, her 20-year career, by setting up a phony company, billing the city, since she was the only employee who handled the invoices and the payments. She would pay out this phony company and did it in the amounts that were small enough that it didn't raise anybody's attention. In the process, she built a horse farm and competitive, horses, and I mean, it was this amazing story. It all came to a crashing halt when she took a vacation after 20 years. So the first thing the guy says is, be cautious of anybody who doesn't take vacations. But I think we do make assumptions, and so I think, I'm going to give it some more thought, and we're going to have some more conversations about what we can do. And one of the suggestions was to establish a fraud hotline that is anonymous and is administered by someone who is not an employee of the city. And then anybody, a city employee, a citizen who sees something can call in, and whoever's kind of managing that would report to the appropriate person what was said for investigation. We could not, you could not, I could not, nobody here could, kind of do what she did, because we make sure that everything's, a bill comes in, the department head approves it, the city treasurer reviews it, I have to sign off on it, I mean, there's lots of checks in between that they weren't in place there. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be prudent, and so I think we're going to pursue some of the suggestions that were made. The other thing is cybersecurity. I'm getting a little tired of attending meetings on the problems of cybersecurity in municipal government, because I always leave going, how am I supposed to deal with this? I mean, they all kind of say, you can't stop it, just don't be the low-hanging fruit. But I did discover the availability of insurance. So should a city be hacked and we get a denial of service problem with a hacker who shuts down the city's system so we can't conduct any business, you can actually insure against that. Our insurance company provides that insurance. We have apparently some level of coverage, so I'm pursuing that as to what we have right now, and see if adding some to that might be worthwhile if the cost isn't significant. I mean, if they tell me it's going to cost $10,000 a year, we probably won't want to do it beyond what we're doing, but if we can do it for a slight premium increase and get increased coverage, I think we might want to pursue that. And I did a session on public-private partnerships, and the best medical marijuana overview that I have attended. But I think some of that has to do with the fact that I know more now. And but this was a good one. It had a lawyer who represents people who are doing it. It had a lawyer who represents cities that are dealing with it. It had a planning and zoning official who's kind of dealt with it the way we have, and the deputy director of the State Department of Mental Health and Senior Services who are regulating it. And so I learned a lot about kind of how the system's working, more than kind of the philosophical or even the practical issues of it that we've already dealt with. That concludes my report.
Any questions? Joe? Oh, thought you looked like you had a question. David?
Hello. You've got my report there as far as the Heritage Commission. It does say next meeting Monday, September 16th. If needed, we will not have that meeting. We don't have any applications, so the next meeting will be in October. You've got the numbers there on building department and code enforcement. Down to Rental Housing Advisory Commission, we had a meeting on August 29th. You've got some information there. There were 5 landlords and 1 owner-tenant who attended. We had a solid 2 hours of conversation. We went over all 4 documents that that commission is perhaps going to propose to you all. We committed to at least a dozen changes in some of the wording and some of the qualifications and some of the requirements. I also gave those landlords an additional month to give any more feedback in case they weren't able to get through all of it. It was time well spent. I mean, there were some concern, but we tried to cover that concern and go over the fact that it was for the health, safety, and security of the occupants. Planning and zoning, the major thing that I wanted to cover was the hearing, so I can confirm tomorrow, but the applicant for the special use permit that was just approved has asked to delay the Board of Aldermen public hearing. If it is December 12th, I will put a retraction in the paper next week, and then whenever that date comes, if it is indeed December 12th, we'll have that in the paper a minimum of 15 days in advance.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal the cover.
No, you didn't. I'm glad it got covered twice. That's really it. You've got some property and maintenance information down there, but that's pretty much it for my report. Yes, sir.
The questions that got brought up to me, David, was, we set our guidelines for these facilities a while back, but 2 of the largest municipalities in our area still have not, the city of St. Louis and the city of Cape Girardeau. Why? I mean, any indications of why they, and what's the benefits of delaying, or what's the benefits of being?
I certainly can't speak to any other city besides ours, but the benefit to me was that we needed to get on the books. If they're now battling applications and their zoning, what rules are they following?
I have Cape Dorados here. They already have theirs up.
Oh, they did?
I've got
Okay.
24 pages from Cape.
I looked over what Jimmy Broad and
if that indeed is what Cape adopted, they adopted cultivation in an agricultural zone, which is less restrictive than us. They adopted dispensaries in a commercial zone, the exact same that we adopted. And they adopted manufacturing in a light industrial, less restrictive than what we adopted.
What about the distances?
I didn't read the distances. I think they adopted 1,000 foot for cultivation, but only 500 for manufacturer. You can certainly read, but that's Cape Girardeau. If this board wants to change the distances, they can change the distances.
It's 1,000 here. So
1,000.
you're well, I just got it this afternoon, Bob.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, we adopted 1,000, or you all adopted 1,000.
And as I recall the conversation, it's listed in this, and then if it needs to be amended, we will consider that at the time. In this medical marijuana meeting that I had, and they had a long question and answer, many cities are where we are in terms of having adopted the standards. Many adopted the state standards as we did, but so did, and there were also many who adopted something less restrictive. And but that's just a choice, and I don't think ours, based on geography of the city, that what you did is unworkable. Obviously, as we talked about, you couldn't adopt a standard that makes it impossible for somebody to do it in your city. Obviously, you did not, so it seems to be working.
Yeah, we covered the fact that the guidelines can't be unduly burdensome. You can't zone these facilities out. That is strictly called for in the amendment, and we didn't.
And just something I'll repeat later, and when you consider the special use permits that will be coming before you, maybe, you have to make a decision relative to some kind of factual basis for acting, or some legal reason for saying no. A lot of the testimony that we received at the meeting didn't really relate to either the facts of the application or any legal impediment that would cause the board to say no. And as one of the planning and zoning commissioners said, if it's a legal activity in the state of Missouri and it conforms with our regulations, how can we say anything but yes? And that was the correct statement to make.
So do we have a reason why they're asking us to push it back?
They would like to get their state license so they can come in here and state they have their state license.
Can I slightly change gears? I mean, it's relevant to that, but what would the special use permit be for the dispensary that has been applied for?
When we wrote the zonings that this board adopted, we wrote special use permit into zoning for a dispensary.
Okay.
So it's
no
not a
matter
matter of we okayed it in a commercial and they need a special use permit in an industrial. It's a matter of we wrote it strictly into commercial with a special use permit. And if I remember, what we talked about was that we wanted to make sure that we could apply some of the things that we've applied to the manufacturing facility. It's allowed, but we can then give some specific conditions.
And you can only control time,
Place and manner.
And whatever that
Place.
one is.
Time, place, and manner.
Time, place, and manner, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Manner of use, that's what.
Any other questions? Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Chief Steiger?
Kenny?
Good evening, everybody. Should have a copy of my report. A couple things that did not make the report is I had another resignation last night, so I'm down a man again. That kind of a continuous effort. He's moving away to go to Texas for a job. We did finish the interior painting. They finished it up yesterday, and we got everything moved back in, and everything's fully operational again, back in place where we can find things. So the interior looks really good. They did a good job on it for us. Our ladder truck will be going back to the shop for a week on the 23rd for some warranty work. They have to drop the fuel tank on the thing. There's a fuel leak above, so they have to drop the tank and do some other work that cannot be done in-house, but it'll be gone a week. It's fully covered by warranty, so it won't cost us anything other than the fuel to go back and forth. And one other nice thing on the ladder truck, I was informed today that because of the quality of the truck we designed and the special things we put on it, it's actually going to be featured in their 2020 calendar for their apparatus manufacturer. So that's a nationwide calendar to be promoted, and a picture for that was actually taken from the community center, and they'll have a little bit of information about the town posted in the calendar also. It's a little boost for us. And I would entertain any questions on the report.
When was the last time we had the exterior of the building painted?
I believe it was 2010. I have to look for sure. It was in the 8 to 10 range.
We do have a couple bids for that too.
They were designed as rough quotes.
Rough
I haven't
quotes.
gone out for any bids on it, but I did get 2 rough quotes from 2 local companies.
I have them somewhere.
I forwarded them to the mayor. I can forward to everybody if I need to, but I gave the mayor
I just
copies of
said you
it.
do that. Forward it to everybody.
Okay, I can do that. If I remember correctly, I don't know the exact dollar amount, but I believe that the high bid, or the high quote was about $42,000
Yeah,
to do the
that was the
entire thing and do it right.
And the other one come in about 35, I think.
Yeah. That would be taking care of the steel that's starting to show rust on the outside and repainting the doors that didn't get done the last time, so it'd be doing it right.
But as you pointed out to me, the one who, 42, was actually came out and inspected the building.
Yeah, they actually both came out. The one that gave us the higher one actually walked around the building with me, and I pointed out some things that they needed to pay attention to. The other one kind of did a self-walking, yeah, we'll send you something type. So I think the higher bid is probably going to be more accurate as what we would need just right off the top right now.
Did they bring any paint manufacturers in with them?
For the interior, we actually did.
The exterior.
Not yet, because we haven't got to that point. The interior, the local company that did that for us actually got about $300 worth of donated paint from Sherwin-Williams. So I'll give them a little plug. They donated $300 worth. That's why their bid came in a few dollars cheaper after. But they had talked about it, and I think we could probably get something accomplished with them if we end up lucky enough to have that same contractor.
That's something we've done in the past. We actually went to the paint manufacturer, had them bring somebody on site, you know, to give us a good evaluation of right product. And
I would definitely be open to that, because I'd be the first to admit I don't know a whole lot about paint.
me neither.
I'm a fast painter. Put it on the page. Any other questions?
Where do you have to take the truck back to?
It's going back to Freeburg, Illinois. The Sentinel Emergency Solutions that we bought the truck through has an office in Arnold, but they don't do a lot of their repairs there. This is going to go back to their shop. They basically bought out another apparatus dealer that had a shop ready and operational. It has all the painting and all the machines and machining equipment and everything to do the jobs up there. They've been doing some warranty work here. We're lucky enough to actually have one of their mechanics living a couple blocks from me. So it's easy for him to come over and check on things. Whenever I have a minor problem, he fixes it right away. But this, because of dropping the tank and everything, it's going to take more to it.
Thanks, Ken.
Anytime.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks.
Thank you. Gary Rock, please come to the podium.
Hello.
Hi.
As you have on my report, we did some mowing and weed eating again. Surprise. We got spraying on the weeds on the paving projects, the edge of the roads, all the grass in the road. So it'd be good and brittle. We can go through with the sweeper, pick it all up, but it'd be ready for jokers to pave. Fixed the drinking fountains on Progress Parkway. Cleared some more mud off of Little Rock Road in the ditches. We had some pretty extensive holes up there. We got them patched. There was some issue with some motorcycles going to the ferry. It was unsafe for them, so Ron got a hold of me and we took care of that. We cut some more trees that were damaged in the storms on buyout properties. Patched some holes on Save-A-Lot Drive. Pushed up and burnt the brush site. We put rock on the road, Division Street, going to the brush site. We did some removal of wayfinding signs on businesses that are no longer there. And I worked with Alliance measuring the risers for the paving projects for the water and sewers. Since I wrote my report, we did get the walking path in the city park all done. We did some touch up on the walking trail along Main Street. There's a piece of property off of Hillcrest. It's the extension of Hillcrest, goes off the hill. It had kind of growed up in the middle. We've been mowing some on the side, so the lady who lives over there brought mention of that, so we went and cleaned that off. And we got 80% of that sinkhole out in Point Bay's brush hogged. So.
Gary, on the drinking fountains on Progress, was that due to vandalism or just?
No, the cartridge, there's a cartridge that goes in them that controls both of them just went bad.
There were some comments about uneven mowing that was observed in the park. Did you figure that out?
I think we have it figured out. This, we just got mowed up there today and everything looks really good, so. Old equipment. Just an update on the street lights. They're ordered. I sat down with Chip and we did a rebate that's offered through Citizens Electric through Wabash. And according to that, we should get a little over $1,000 back on a rebate on those. So.
Yeah, I've spoken to you before on the issues with some low-hanging limbs on the streets. And what is our policy on that? Is it Dave, Morton?
It is a problem. The code holds the property owner responsible if any of the trees on their property obstruct traffic. They're supposed to keep it clear. But then I've been told that it was the policy of the city before I got here to trim trees that were encroaching on the street too low for traffic to move. That has not been the policy since I have been here. So we notify the property owner that their tree is impeding traffic and ask them to mitigate the violation. Unless you want me to pursue another policy.
Well, there's some areas that really need it badly. And if they want to try and miss those, they got to get in the other lane to go around it. So
that's why we have the ordinance.
It's a safety consideration.
It's like any other code enforcement, state sends them an advice letter saying, here's the problem, please take care of it. We try and get them to do it voluntarily, and it's only after they refuse to do it voluntarily that we would then move to the enforcement.
Well, I know the old policy was better because all we had to do was say something and it was done within a couple days.
It's a slippery slope. How much maintenance are we going to do on private property?
Well, this is overhanging on the street.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So we can go back to that. I don't know.
Yeah, but do we?
Harry says it's not that big a deal if we want to do that.
We've not done that since I've been in charge, but I have done that before.
Right.
Usually we get everything when Buck used to give us a list in half a day and it was
gone.
Yeah.
You just stick to the policy. We got a policy.
Safety.
We got pole saws. That's what we do it with.
So what in our ordinance, do we have a distance, a measurement from the pavement to?
I don't know, Dave, you might refresh my memory. I think it just says impeding flow of traffic.
Anything over or under 8 foot above the street or sidewalk.
It's low.
That's low, yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be changed.
How tall are your buses?
We need at least 11 feet. And 12 would be better because they're going to grow.
Right, every year.
Actually, if I might, that would be a good thing for the fire department too, because our ladder truck's about 11 foot 6 too.
Yeah,
So it would help us too.
good point.
Well, we could prepare a
Change
revision
the
to the ordinance. That doesn't change our policy. It just makes it more onerous. Would you like for us to prepare that revision?
I think so.
12 feet?
Yep.
I think, what do you think, Kenny?
I think 11 and a half would be good, because our ladder truck right now is 11 and a half.
12 feet.
What are utilities? There's a measurement on utilities, isn't there?
How low they can be?
Right.
I can't.
Yeah, there's a
I don't
measurement of
remember that.
utilities that has to be a certain,
Depends on the voltage they're carrying.
You know, we have street sign heights that we require, walking paths. That's,
Tractor trailer's what, 13 cents?
most are.
Oh, really? No, pretty close to that.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary. Jimmy, you got a committee report?
Yes, I do. Myself and Bryant Wolfen met with Sue and Martin here in the office, and then we met later on at my house on a Sunday, and we reviewed 2 bids. One is from, and if I screw these names up, I'm sorry, Busney, K. Rowe, and Schroeder out of Cape. Their bid was $15,600, and that's from 2019 through 2023. They're stayed the same. The other bid is from Hochschild Bloom and Company out of Washington, Missouri. Their bid was $15,000. 2019, it goes up every year until 2023, it's $15,500. So we recommended, in accordance with section 140.040 of the municipal code, that the contract be awarded to the company in Washington, Missouri.
What was the dates the same?
Yes.
well, the life of the contract's a different.
It's a 5-year contract.
$2,000, something.
Yeah.
So it is $2,000 over the,
I'm not sure it's 2,000 either, but there's a difference.
is this something we haven't bid before, or we only bid when the?
It hasn't been done in a number of years, and while we aren't obligated to do it, it was considered that it's been long enough that we should do it, so we put it out for proposals.
So this cheaper bid, though, it goes up every year?
Yes, from $15,000 to $15,500, but they're still $100 cheaper at the end of 5 years than the company from Cape.
So over the 5 years, the cheaper company will be about $2,000
Yeah.
cheaper over the 5 years.
Yeah.
So the first one at 15.6 stays the same every
Yes.
year?
Over every year.
Yeah.
So why do we stay with the same?
We're not. We're awarding it to the company in Washington, Missouri.
No.
That's what we're recommending.
We're recommending, yes.
What's your question?
Well, typically we get 3 bids on stuff.
Well,
You didn't have any other people? or-
We sent 10 or 11
Sent
bids.
12 invitations out.
We got 2 back.
That's fine.
Two companies that are providing that service to other public entities, because there's a certain qualification they have to meet, so to ensure I was sending it to people who were pre-qualified, who did that research.
We went local and got no response.
I got to respond.
Yeah,
We don't do that well.
right.
So is there any add-ons to these contracts? I mean, every time we call them in, every time we call them on the phone, is there extra charges that could eat up the?
It's here if you want to read through it. There's the one
I thought you did.
No, they give an hourly price if you have to call them in. If it's partners or directors, or staff people, and it's here if you want to read through it, Bob. There's a lot of stuff in there.
So the company that we use now, do they charge us extra for?
No,
And how often do we have to call or check in with them, or the new company would charge us for?
I mean, I call them several times a month just to keep updated on things and.
So that could eat up $2,000 real quick.
could.
So what is the reason of those calls? I mean, are we just,
Well, like the whole, for instance, one of them, the water tower thing between the county and the city, with all that, they helped set all the, or helped advise, I guess, on how to set that up and account for like the county's part of it, our part of it, and the final payment to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Question about accounting principles. We had an issue with, we don't have that now, but with the Valley Springs TIF postings, that there were certain procedures you had to follow, and she needed clarification on where those would go. It's just stuff.
What's your comfort level with going with this new company?
I prefer staying with where we are. I mean, they have a team that changes every year. It's not the same person. So they always bring in 3 new people that do different things than the person before. They're very willing to work with us. Anytime I've called them, I've never had an issue.
We went strictly by what the city code says.
Right.
That's all I
But
say.
there's unknowns in that as well. I mean, the one is all included, the other one is by the hour. We could eat up that 2,000 real
You
quick.
could, you might.
There's also issues with their most recent report, given there's a lot of outdated stuff that I felt showed some form of neglect that should have been updated, stuff that off the top of my head, I don't remember. I think one was, Jimmy, do you recall? We discussed, we had it all written down, and I don't have it in front of me.
I don't either.
But there was some stuff in their audit report that just seemed, for, I guess, a lack of better words, just copied and pasted, just over. Probably irrelevant, but it just showed signs of neglect and cutting corners, I guess would be a good way to put it. So my thought process along with this is sometimes change isn't bad. Fresh set of eyes. I mean, sure that they may change auditors, but we don't know what this different company would do. Could be better, could be worse. So that was another idea behind it, but we felt as far as moving forward with the recommendation, sticking with the ordinance that was put here was the better, reasoning to put down.
So this company that we got a bid from, the new company and stuff, do they have experience with municipalities? Do they do a lot of them, or they
do a lot. I think both companies do a lot, but the Washington company deals more with the cities towards the St. Louis area, whereas the people we use now is more towards
Afton Fire Department, City of Arnold, City of Bellefonte Naval, City of Blackjack, City of Breckenridge Hills, Brentwood Transportation Development, Calverton Park, Missouri, Cameron, Missouri, Collinsville, Cool Valley, Deloge, Missouri, East Central Dispatch City, Fenton, Missouri, Florissant, Missouri, Forestell, Franklin County, Frontenac, Herman, Missouri.
I don't have a problem changing. It's just, we're not comparing apples to apples.
Yes, you are. You're comparing dollars for dollars.
No, there's unknowns in there.
There's a lot of unknown dollars in there.
Well, you can't do bids on unknowns, Mayor.
Right.
You don't know how many times you may not have to
Well, the
call
one
them
doesn't
out.
charge us for it now.
Well, it is also
If
stated
they
in that
want the
bid
one
that
to
it could
be
be
all
less.
inclusive, that'd be
Their
fine.
bid also states
Wait a
it could be less.
It could be
Like I
less.
say, you guys are welcome, sit here and read it anytime you want.
So how did they come up with less?
Well, it just says that this is what they expected to take.
Right.
So, it's all going based off hourly. So this 15.
So this is not an in concrete
No,
price
no.
on
Yes.
either one.
Yes, it is. They gave a price of $15,000 to do your audit, Bob. $15,000.
Okay, but he
Well,
just said it
I thought I didn't.
But if you need them for other stuff, they give you an hourly rate depending on whether you want a partner or a staff person or whatever.
I could be wrong, Bob.
What
Maybe
is
I
that hourly
misunderstood.
rate?
It varies. Partners, 150 to 120. Supervisory staff, 110 to 80. Staff others, $50 to $70.
Those are add-ons beyond the deliverable of the report, right? So, I mean, they're going to give you a report.
They're going to give you a report.
It's hard enough to look at $2,000.
Well, unless we eat that up every time Sue needs to call them for something. Which we're not getting charged for now.
There's no, well, I'll shut up. I did my job, so you guys do whatever you want.
And we appreciate your due diligence. Thank you, both of you. All of you.
Well, I guess the board's got to decide which bid we're going to take.
Do we need to decide that right now?
We need to have it on the next meeting's agenda.
Do you have electronic copies of those?
No.
I can scan them. Would you mind? I would like to just review it if that's all right.
Just look on the agenda for next meeting.
I will put it on the agenda. I need to know which one to put it on.
The company we've used now, I mean, what was their price in the past? I mean, is this up from what it was, or?
I think it's the same.
I don't know what it was in the past.
It went up $100 per year. They were like the last,
Oh, so this one went up $100 per year also for the last term of the contract? Oh, well, that, okay.
Well, Mark has suggested that we put both of them on for our next meeting, and you take action on the one that you want, and just not on the other one.
Just look at the bids yourselves and hash it out for the next meeting.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, thank you.
So Sue, are you the only one that really has contact with them?
we all do.
Who's we
She's the
all?
primary.
I'm the primary one, but like they'll deal with Megan, they get ordinances and a lot of information from Pam.
You know, they called me on the water tower because they needed to know what the nature of the relationship of the parties were.
How many pages are those reports or bids?
This one,
Just curious.
it's around 40 pages. This one is around 5.
But that one contains a profile, a bio on the principal.
Yeah, but they also go, you guys can read it.
Yeah, so you're gonna get it to us, right?
Yes, I will.
Good.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
We'll move on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Takes us to public comments. Yes, ma'am. Kathy?
Hello, I know most of you, but some of you don't know me. My name is Kathy Grusling. I came to St. Genevieve about 17 years ago as a tourist and fell in love with it. And my husband and I bought a weekend home here 14 years ago. And 6 years ago, we decided to move here permanently. He runs a state license office, and I work at the Center for French Colonial Life. And I am an interpreter. I give tours of the Bolduc and the Lamiere House. And because I'm in the tourist industry, that's why I'm here. I've been reading the paper the past 2 weeks and the paper this week. Lots of comments back and forth. And I just have my own view as being a person moving here and coming here as a tourist and falling in love with this beautiful town. I've noticed, as I was thinking about this, I thought about this last night. If you go through our downtown area and you look at all the businesses, how many of those people are really from St. Genevieve? Majority of them, at least I can think of 15 or 16 groups of businesses or businesses. People came here as a tourist, just like we did, fell in love with this beautiful town, and they're investing in it. The bed and breakfast, Dr. O'Donnell and Pat have put a lot of money redoing the Main Street Inn. Jan and Kathy have been here a long time. They're from Texas. The folks at the Audubon, I think they're mostly from this area, but they've really put a lot into making a wonderful hotel. 5, 6 years ago, we had 4 restaurants downtown. We've got 7 now. When people come through the Center for French Colonial Life, first thing we do, of course, we greet them. We welcome them to St. Genevieve, tell them about our museum. But we also ask them, where are you from and what brought you here? Why did you come to St. Genevieve? We fill out a report every time we do a tour, and we ask people that. Many of the people, surprisingly, are people from the St. Louis area, southern Missouri, and just recently, over Labor Day weekend in the past 2 weeks, we have been inundated with folks from the St. Louis area. And I asked the one lady, boy, all you folks from St. Louis are coming here. What's going on? Well, 2 people tell me they're sick of going to Kimswick, and they wanted to go someplace else, and they found out we're only an hour away. And I can understand that. I lived in St. Louis until in my 50s, all my life an hour away, and had never been to St. John. And then it was like, wow. But they come here, they are blown away, they're amazed. And others I have heard recently It's advertising. They are reading, there are papers that, I know Sandra advertises because when I lived in St. Louis before I moved here, I would see them. There's a Kirkwood Webster Times, South County Journal, there's a West County paper. We've had people coming from St. Charles County, even some folks from Arnold, and said, I have never been here. So I think we take tourism for granted. We think, oh, everybody knows, what does it do? Well, all of these people that moved here and opened those businesses, not everybody in St. Genevieve shops downtown, believe me. I have had people say to me, I had a scarf on in the grocery store one day and a lady says to me, where'd you get that? I said, at a shop downtown. Oh, I never go down there, I get lost every time I go there. Really? What would you do if you went to St. Louis? It's a circle. But it's those kind of comments. It's non-committal with the people who live here. I grew up here and it's the same thing. I probably haven't been up on the arch in 30 years. When you live amongst this history and this beauty, you take it for granted. You folks don't realize the treasure you have here. I would never have, I am a city girl. I lived in the city. I love big cities. I would never have moved here if I didn't love it. I just hope you rethink all these negative thoughts that people are having about tourism and the aspect, and yes, and I know you're talking about getting together and maybe getting some ideas from different people and working some things out. But Jamie was just talking to us, the one aspect where people are talking about, oh, we should get volunteers. Oh, don't even think about it. Look at what she's going through. I chair the French Heritage Festival. I have a key group of people, and I have asked more and more, well, I'm busy with this, and there's a lot of people in this town that work. My husband and I retired, we still work. I mean, people have lives, they don't have the time, or they grew up here and they're saying, well, I did that 10, 20 years ago. 4,400 people, you're limited in the number of volunteers you're gonna get. And you need commitment. I've worked with volunteers, you don't always get commitment. They might like it for a while. Sandra will get them trained on what they're gonna do at the Welcome Center. They're bored, they leave. They have to be computer savvy. They have to know how to book tours, how to talk to people, how to sell our community. There's so much more involved than just her sending out some text messages or buying some ads. All the printing for all the brochures, and they are all over town. We have them at the center where I work. People come in and they're in the restaurants. So I've gone on long enough, but I'm very passionate about this, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention because I'm not from here, and how I love it here. And my friends come down from St. Louis, my kids come here, they're like, oh my God, they're blown away with the history. Look how old we are so significant. So please rethink and maybe let it go for another year and work on it. Change is always good, and Sandra's very open to that. So I just think that, we really do need to promote that. These businesses, we don't have tourism. We're going to have storefronts in downtown St. Genevieve, and the restaurants will close. Maybe the four that were here originally will be here, but maybe not. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Yes, sir. Please state your name.
Okay. I'm Dick Reminger, 21946 White Sands Road, and I just had a few comments on the budget. If I understand it, Mayor help me here, that next year's budget is pretty much, there really wasn't any increases to speak of in next year's budget that was in this year's budget. And from what I understand, that this year's budget is going to come in with about a $100,000 surplus. So why does it sound like the sky's falling? You guys have been beating this thing for 5 months. And we keep talking about you keep talking about cuts. We got to cut this, we got to cut that. Why do you have to cut anything? Why do you have to, you talk about the police department and the fire department. If they're coming in with the same budget and you're looking at a $100,000 surplus in this year, I don't get it. And Mike, you're looking for an answer to tell your people. Well, sure, you're looking at the worst case scenario, but tell them, yeah, we're looking at the worst case scenario, and if it comes in that way, there might be a deficit. But we have the managers in place that do a good job, that we trust, and we trust their judgment, and they've proven in the past that they're very good stewards of our money. And instead of that, probably we have a lot higher probability, instead of a deficit, we're going to come in with a surplus again. That's not a good enough answer to tell your people? I don't, and I don't know, and part of what I hear is, well, we trust them, we trust our managers, we trust our department heads, but at the other side, it sounds like you want to micromanage their budgets. And why? If you don't like them, I think it was said at the last meeting, get rid of them. If you don't like the job Martin's doing, get rid of him. Joe, you said a couple times, I don't want to cut the things we have to do, fire, water, police. What's wrong with water? I think that was fixed several years ago. The whole water I mean, what's wrong there?
There's nothing wrong there. I mentioned them because they're a required service, just like fire and police are. That's the only reason I mentioned them.
Okay.
They're a required service.
Absolutely. But what's wrong with their budget?
I didn't say anything.
Okay. Okay. But you said you don't want to cut their budget, or you don't want to cut those particular, and I guess it's more related to the tourism side. Let's cut tourism if we have to do something for fire and police and water.
I'm not in, like I told Mr. Fowler today when he called me, I'm not in favor of pulling the plug on anything.
Okay.
I've been saying for 4 years now that the funding mechanism for tourism is broken, and we need to be exploring other possibilities to fund that department rather than it be 100% on the city, or 90 whatever percent. I'm just saying that the funding mechanism is broken. We have the potential of running a deficit, even more so this year than we have in the past, and this is being ignored. It's ignored year after year, and we have to start looking at it before we have to start cutting essential services to fund something that's not required by law to have. I would like for the other funding mechanism, if we can determine one, to even increase the amount of money that's spent on it. I don't have a problem with spending money on it. I have a problem with spending taxpayer money on it. And I just think the funding mechanism is broken.
Well,
that's where I was getting at.
Okay.
We need to find another funding mechanism to assist us with that and take some of the burden from the city.
Okay. I would like to maybe talk a little bit about that too, but but you're still, bottom line, you're looking at a budget where more than likely, if things stay the same, you're going to end up with a $100,000 surplus next year.
I want to, Dick, I'm sorry, I wanted to cut with, it's relevant to exactly what you just said. The main reason this was ever brought up in the first place, obviously it was talked about last year doing this, but as far as this budget being the same as last year's budget that was passed, is not true. Last year's 2019, if I recall, was passed at about a $149,000 deficit and is going to end up coming in at over 100K. The original budget that was proposed originally was I think like 300,000, like anywhere from $260,000 to $300,000 worth of deficit. And part of that comes from losing the PEBA situation, losing the income on that. But originally, I just wanted to touch up on what you first said as far as originally this was made such a big deal because it's such a substantial increase in deficit compared to last year. That's why I kind of said it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, no, that's, and one of your points was in some of the past years, we did overspend, and a lot of those things and a lot of those reasons is the board at that time, a lot of that was probably related to projects. And they felt that that was more important to do those particular projects and to go into the reserves. Now, that hasn't been that way in recent years. There's usually been a surplus, and especially since Martin's been here, that's not has happened. And the surplus is the, is the $100,000 surplus in this budget? I mean, it's not revenue, but are you considering the $100,000 that's left over from this year? Is it considered in what you're talking about today? in your analysis that you did you think, well, I got $100,000. You said the reserves, you're happy with the reserves of what the city's got, and you're going to end up with an extra $100,000. Is that in your budget?
I believe is what we're spending on street projects this year, right? Are anticipated? I thought that's what we were.
100,000 is projected, is after we pay for the street.
Well, okay.
So,
Besides which is a general revenue.
I mean, right there, your $80,000 deficit that you were talking about that you really believe is going to happen, ain't going to happen. If you considered the $100,000 that's sitting out there. Bob Mueller talked a little bit about revenues, and I think he tried planting a seed in everybody's mind about where's the plan. And I don't know how much anybody talked about in the last 5 months about revenues and where it's going to come from going forward. And I know Bob certainly was aiming at what's staring you the biggest in the face. I mean, you probably got, and your biggest variable in your budget is sales tax. Well, unless somebody on a much higher level than here decides what they're going to do with internet taxes, who knows when that's going to happen, when they actually do something decent with sales tax on the internet. Who knows? And retail, I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to go out and find a Sears or what else? A Sears or a Kmart or a Radio Shack? I mean, come on, guys, they're all gone and they're all leaving. Back in, I think, the 2000s, the chamber sponsored it was a meeting to try to talk about retail and retail development in town. And the owner of the shopping center, Mr. Goldman, I think, he was there. Goldenberg. And he mentioned that, you know, retail is certainly what determines it is rooftops. And you got to have rooftops, and then they'll come. But, you know, and that was I don't know, probably 10, 15 years ago. I don't know if that's so much true today with the internet, because you can order something today and have it tomorrow. So, you know, to look and say we're going to get retail in here to generate sales tax, I don't think it's going to happen. So what's the plan? What's the biggest thing that we've got here that we can capitalize on that can generate some revenue? Hey, look at the water park. Say you got 12,000 people. What was it? 12,000 people estimated the first 2 weekends? Well, if those 12,000 people, if they spent $2 a piece buying a soda or buying something in the concession stand, you're 2.5% of that's $600 in your sales tax. Should we as a city be promoting a water park? Some of you might say, no, that should be the county. That's their problem, or that's their job. No, you ought to be capitalizing on it. It's money in your pocket. Tourism's unique to here. You know, you can't get it you can't buy it on the internet. They got to come here. And again, what other options do you have? What other plan is there to generate more sales tax? It's the biggest thing out there that you could take advantage of. And you're looking at cutting it. Jim Ferguson mentioned about businesses and what they do on their own to generate business for themselves. And you might sit here and look at me and say, well, I'm just up here self-serving because I have a business down there. I do, and yeah, sure, somewhat is, but I'm not here because of that. But the other thing that I think nobody has touched on yet, look at those jobs. I mean, it's tourism, sure, but it's also economic development. We employ about 20 people down there. Half of them are kids and part-time, but it's still employment. How many people does Audubon's employ? And all the other restaurants and the tour houses and the shops and all that. So rename it. Maybe it's not tourism. How much of it's economic development? Joe, you mentioned the 611%, I believe, increase in tourism and expenditure, you know. Well, you got to remember, there was only a part-time director in 2009 and only a full-time director in 2010. We haven't been at it that long. So if you look at an increase going from 0 to where we're at today, yeah, it's a hell of an increase.
And And where I was getting at with that, I mean, that's almost a decade worth of data, and 611% increase, and we only saw, let's see, a 7.3% increase in our sales tax receipts, and that didn't even keep up with the inflation rate, which was 18.22%.
But I don't think you can,
Our sales taxes are flat.
but I don't think you can I don't think you can easily, I don't think you can say and make that comparison. You're just starting to get the word out.
It's been 10 years.
10
The data
years,
is
yeah.
spread over 10 years.
Well, for sure. And in every conversation, it sounds like, well, what about the national park? They're going to be our savior. They're going to fix everything. Yet, come on, guys. The destiny's in your hands, if not in their hands. Sure, we could only hope they bring several tens of thousands of people to town. That would be great. But they're not going to fix this. You mentioned the museum. And, I mean, what a nice building that is. I'm on the museum board. You said they raised millions. They went out and raised millions. No, we haven't raised millions. We haven't met our goal yet. And do you think that board and the people that donated, if they would be sitting here in this meeting tonight or listening to what's going on, that they would have made the commitment to do that? They're counting on, sure, they're counting on that place to be a destination for people to come to draw people to this town. But to go from basically no income at all to generate salaries to pay people and ask volunteers to work there, it's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a tough one to do. But if they were sitting here thinking or listening that the city's going to abandon their efforts, I don't know what would have been accomplished.
I don't believe it was ever said that we were going to abandon the efforts. Like I said earlier, it's about finding the correct funding mechanism to fund it.
Okay, and into that, you've had the St. Genevieve Parish have done two major capital campaigns in the last I don't know, few years anyway. It is definitely a giving community, but how far is it going to go? The Presbyterian Church and the O'Neill House.
I mean, public comments, Dick has the right to comment, and let's keep it at that. Dick, go ahead and comment, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, the Presbyterian Church and the O'Neill House, they've got that going, the hospital, capital campaigns, and then you got the museum. I mean, and then let's get back to the revenue part of it. It's the biggest opportunity you've got, maybe the only opportunity that you've got to generate revenue. So, but it just looks like that we're looking at trying to make these cuts in the budget, and they don't need to be cut. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any more public comments? Thank you.
I'm Herb Fowler, and I'm a resident of St. Genevieve, and I'm not going to dwell on a lot of things. I'll make it short and sweet because we've had so many nice things said and some things that weren't so nice, but I'm here from the bottom of my heart to just say what I feel about tourism. And the reason I wasn't very spoken out before this was because somebody said, hey, you got a business downtown. Sure, you're interested in it. And I am part of a business and part of the businesses that are downtown. But let me tell you that I've been working with tourism and a lot of leaders from back 30 years ago, which I had no business interest at that time. And we have accomplished a lot of things we couldn't get accomplished. But some of them, just a few, it was a Mississippi River Parkway, which we got the funding for the streets around town, the Tourist Information Center, and several other things that we got through them. Then the levee that was built, which saved St. Genevieve again last time, was not because of tourism, but it was because of the historic building, which ties in with tourism. And so, of course, then the national park, which we hope is going to really develop it. But there's people have been working on that, including Tim and a lot of the other ones have been working on that issue for, I don't know, 10 years or probably longer than that, 10 years. Huh?
I've been here 30 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, tourism, St. Genevieve has dwelled on tourism. It's not, maybe not the most important one, but it keeps our community alive. It keeps it developing. It keeps it from dying. So, please give it some thought. And and I'm sure Sandra and a lot of other people in the tourism business would agree with Joe and some of them that maybe we can, I mean, we're not locked in on this. Sometimes we've got to think outside the box or in the box or somewhere. And so I think that's all good possibilities. I just hope that we could keep our budget where it is or close or better or whatever we can. But just to keep tourism going for at least another year till we can work on it better. And I think what Jamie talked about, the Jour de Fête, she gave so many things that they're doing right, and tourism is all tied in with part of that and part of the development of St. Genevieve. I've got just one other thing. I've got some pictures at home. They're blown up about this big. But back when we had the flood several years ago, I got a picture of the Delta Queen and the Mississippi River. There's a Queen, Mississippi River and Delta Queen. Both are docked down here at the marina. And it's a beautiful sight. And not saying that they'll ever do that again, but it just gives you a picture of what St. Genevieve could be. You know, we were the first permanent settlement on the west banks as far as riverfront on the west banks of Mississippi. We don't have anything except where the ferry lands and you can get to the river. But we should have a nice river park if we were the first one on the west side of the Mississippi. But just things like that. I appreciate your time. I've talked to a few of you today, and I appreciate your time and your interest. And thank you.
Any other public comments? Jim Ferguson?
It was just mentioned a little while ago about how many people we employ at the Audubons. At one time, we were around 49 employees. We're somewhere around 30 plus employees. I look at the sales tax that we generate at the hotel and the restaurant. It's a lot of money. I also look, because I pay all the bills, and I look at everything that comes through. I notice that my sales tax goes up, or my business taxes, all these things that you come to me for to pay. I pay a sales tax, I pay business tax, licenses, and all these other things. So I support what we do here with tourism. And if you pull the funding and you will pull the monies out of this economy for tourism, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt all of us. We do support with volunteers and different things that we do in St. Genevieve. I remember when the lady was up here first when she talked about coming to St. Genevieve. I never forget when my wife and I bought an old historical home, made it into a bed and breakfast, and they asked me to come across as a guest conductor for the Muni Band. So I come across the street in a wool tuxedo in August, sweating with a beaver top hat, and I came across, and everybody that comes out that does this, they get up, they do their little number. But I had to get up and say something. And I don't think people from St. Genevieve realize what you have here. You have a jewel. This is what God meant it to be. And I think sometimes people take it for granted, other than people like myself that moved to St. Genevieve because I fell in love with the town as a tourist, and I became involved in it, and I became an investor in St. Genevieve. I hope you continue your investment in the St. Genevieve tourism, just like I did with my investment coming to St. Gen. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, move on to the meeting. Thank you all very much for your comments. Takes us to the consent agenda. Need a motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Takes us to discussion of employee raises. See that on the top of the list here. Overlooked it. Wanted to have a discussion about that?
We need to have something for that. I would propose up to 3%.
Do what?
I would propose up to 3%,
Mhm.
as we've done in the past.
And the only really raise that, we approve the raises, but the board will approve, the only raise we can approve is Martin's. The rest of them is left up to the department heads and Martin to depend what, up to, so.
Paul, the one thing I've said this before, I have a problem with percentages across the boards. Because it's going to leave some of our lower paid people an increase in somewhere in 35 cents an hour. And some of our higher paid people, it's going to put a lot more dollars in their pockets. Why can't we equal that out? If we're going to spend X number of dollars, I just think we need to take care of some of our lower paid employees more than we do some of our higher paid employees and forget the percentages.
Well,
Because some of our lower paid employees are just as important as some of the higher paid, I think, and I just don't see passing out more dollars to some people.
Well, I look at that, and I don't know what I haven't looked at the base rate of our employees, but if we have employees that should be a base rate, should be higher then. Because you take the incentive or whatever it's all about your job and what you're doing here, so I surely, just because you might have somebody that's here is making a lower wage, but really doesn't deserve any more than that, so I think that's up to the department heads, I think. So I see what you're saying though, but.
Right.
Yes, Gary?
The only question in that is, if you raise the base rate, you're gonna have a person come in at base rate higher than somebody who's been here a year or two.
So I didn't say strictly the base rate.
No, that's what,
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that,
Raise
yeah,
the
I
base
don't,
rate.
yeah. You have to look at all the rates,
We used to, years ago, form a salary committee to look at stuff like that. Do you remember anything like that? It seems like I remember something a long time ago. A salary review committee or something, yeah.
There was, but it was always, mostly it was always a merit increase based on Martin and department heads' choices, so it wasn't necessarily across the board raises. And so that lower paid employee might be, that was the way a lot of things were adopted, was you had a maximum you could go, but one guy might get 4 or 5%, and the next guy might get 1%. But you were in a maximum of 3% cap.
It's just hard for a board member, or me and stuff, to vote on something like that I don't have a say in the end result.
What kind of say in the end result?
Well, just, if I think a lower paid employee deserves more than a higher paid employee, then I think that should be
You
heard.
can't make it, you don't evaluate, you can't make that decision anyway, because you don't
I
even.
just said I wanted to be heard.
Pardon me?
I just said I wanted to be heard.
But that's personally, you can't, that's where you have to leave it up to if Gary's got an employee he thinks is worth more money, he needs to come to his supervisor and say, hey, this guy is worth more money. You're talking about, because we can't evaluate employees, the only one we evaluate is Martin.
It's all covered in the handbook.
See, I guess I would kind of like that approach, instead of saying
Yes.
3% across the board, and I'll pick on Gary because he's here. Gary can, I guess, give a review to Martin of what he thinks. I mean, I don't care what employee 1, 2, or 3 are getting, but tell us what the needs of his department is according to the raises that he as department head thinks he should give out, and then give us how that's going to impact the budget from there. To limit it at 3% or whatever, I don't know if that's fair.
You gotta put something out there.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Nobody knows Gary's employees better than Gary.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and all we're doing is approving,
Or
you have this
vice
pay
versa.
raise from this percent up to 3%.
Yeah.
And then he decides how much, is it a 1.5, is it 3? And Gary, you're right, you're exactly right, Gary's gotta decide that. Because we can't, because we don't know Gary's employees. And if, like I said, my whole point is, if, I don't know what the base rate is for a city, somebody to come to work in the streets department, but, you know,
So who sets those base rates?
I don't know.
I do.
Martin does.
Within the confines of the budget you approve.
So should we go higher? Higher than 3?
Well, I mean,
I ain't saying
Here we are
it's
talking about making changes, and here we are talking about, it's a tough.
I mean, I think there may be employees out there that probably deserve more than 3, but then others that don't.
Right.
I mean, they deserve something, but maybe not 3.
Right, and that's where the department head comes in.
So I
like the committee's ideas.
yeah, I mean, his total,
Is it very often that they that underneath, this might be a question for the department heads, is it very often that we, or you guys don't actually give your guys the full 3%? Often, or not very?
It is the exception.
3 years, but.
It's the exception.
If you have an employee who isn't working up to the standard you established, you're more likely to have gotten rid of him than not give him a raise when the time comes. But sometimes there are, as I have expressed for the employees that I supervise directly, there are occasions when, because of attendance or something that isn't worthy of dismissal, you choose to withhold all or some portion of the raise on the basis of the evaluation of those specific issues. You don't want to fire the person, but you want them to get better.
well, I guess I guess the problem I have is, I'll pick on a different department this time, let's say Sandra's. Let's say Sandra's department. Let's say she's got one employee that does everything they're supposed to do. I mean, even goes above and beyond just a little bit, and they deserve the 3%. But then one of them is really, pushing it, doing way more, and they're still only going to get 3%. The one that's
life.
the one that's doing just a little bit more than supposed to, and doing yeah, they deserve the 3%. But what gives us any? I mean, somebody may deserve more than that, is what I'm saying. Whether it be no matter what department it is, and I'm not sure. And the whole department might come in under the 3% total.
Timmy,
You know what I'm saying?
can we all just vote as Aldermen, vote 3% and no percent and get on?
So
We're still worth the discussion.
who all is included in the 3%? Because we've given one department a pretty good increase already.
They're not on this.
The police are not included.
Police are not included.
So Buck, was that a motion?
Yeah, I'd make that motion.
I'll second that motion for 3%.
You're seconding it, do you want to change it to, don't you want to leave it back to like it is from, you have the option from 1 to 3%?
You are, up to 2%.
Yeah, up to 2%.
Oh, that's what I intended.
Yeah.
That was the
Yes.
motion, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That
What's his motion, up to 3%?
And I have a second. on
I
that
have a
motion.
second on that.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Okay, so I have, the ayes have it, I had one no
Who
vote.
voted no, please?
Bryant Wolfen?
2.
Bryant and
And
Bob?
Bob? Okay.
Can we look at that going forward, though?
Yeah, we can look at it.
You know, the solution, and Bob's right, that as long as you're just doing a percentage and everybody gets it, you begin to create this increasing disparity between the higher paid people and the lower paid people. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. On the other hand, people who started working at $5 an hour and have been here for 25 years kind of earned their position, and now you're saying, relatively speaking, you're going to not reward them because you're trying to close this perceived gap. So it's a complicated problem.
You're not rewarding them in a percentage, you're still rewarding them in more dollars. That's my point, and that's why I voted no.
I understand your point. The traditional solution to this is a unified personnel program where you establish for each position a pay grade and percentages increases over the years and step increases when they go from clerk 2 to clerk 3, and those systems work well, but they're a little expensive to create. I'm talking, this community, probably 10,000, 15 maybe. The problem with it is that when you don't, you then no longer get to review the annual budget for salaries. It's fixed by that schedule, and if you don't fund it, the whole system falls apart. And it's been my observation for small communities, it's more dysfunctional than functional in the long run.
Is it all right?
Can I interject for just a second? I believe what is the bone of contention here is if you're approving 3%, which may be $15,000, I think what Bob is proposing is instead of giving the employee that 3%, divide that up. If it ends up being 75 cents per employee, then you're still doing a merit-based system for that 75 cents, but the across the board would be on a dollar amount versus a percentage amount.
Yes.
Is that correct?
What I heard was let's authorize a higher potential increase for the lower paid employees and a smaller potential increase, not guaranteed to anybody, for the higher paid employees.
But what do you consider lower and higher?
Well, you'd have to establish the thresholds.
Right.
Yeah,
I just know in business you
Flat
can't.
rate increase across the board, like the chief was saying, so 50 cents an hour for everybody, you know, as opposed to a percentage. So you can do a lot of different things, but, you know, it's something to think about in the future.
Is it possible to look into what other municipalities are doing in the department, just to see other options?
It's easy to look into. As a matter of fact, I think MML already has done that study. So.
If there's some way we can get some information on that, I'd definitely appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move forward into old business. Bill number 4305, an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve authorizing the mayor to enter into agreement with Jokers Incorporated of St. Genevieve, Missouri to overlay portions of Cedar Lane, Seraphim Street, 4th Street, and 3rd Street in the amount not to exceed $74.10 per ton.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a roll call, please.
Alderman Smith.
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Jones.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Wolfen.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4305 now becomes ordinance 4234.
Okay, before we move forward.
Before we move forward, yes, you want to talk about that water line?
Yeah. We had a leak in the Cedar Lane, and it's an old transite line, and it's got problems. Steve has recommended we not overlay it until it can be replaced.
That section of street.
That section of street. So we were going to do it all the way to the 4th Street, and we're going to hold back a block so we don't overlay bad pipe.
We don't want to do that.
2 blocks.
Two blocks.
But we will finish the project. Maybe it might be next year before we finish.
It's about 770 lineal feet of pipe.
That makes good sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that takes us to Bill number 4306, an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri authorizing a 2% convenience fee be charged to all customers who pay of any fees using a debit credit card.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is this, sorry, can I ask a question? So is this going to be in effect after a certain amount of time that everyone's been notified? Is that correct?
Yes.
We are sending out letters and all that after this is voted on?
Yes.
And then how long before this would be in effect?
Oh, we had an effective date of the ordinance.
The
We did,
ordinance
right.
states October 1st.
Okay, does that allow enough time to notify and update all the billing? It's kind of what I'm concerned about, is how much extra work that's going to be, if it's going to be able to happen in that amount of time.
As far as the billing, it wouldn't hit like the bills will go out at the end of September, so it really.
Okay, so you'll have basically a full billing.
Like
On the bottom?
message on
Right.
the bill stating.
At the
that
bottom?
As of, yeah.
Okay,
And
but
the
you
letters
think,
are gonna go out tomorrow.
okay, so you all think there's enough time to notify folks and have that accomplished? Thank you.
So I do have a first and a second. I'll need a roll call, please.
Alderman Wolfen,
Yes.
Alderman Prince,
Yes.
Alderman Jones,
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers,
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Smith.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4306 now becomes ordinance 4235.
Thank you. It takes us to bill number 4307, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter in a revised cooperative agreement with the city St. Genevieve County, with the St. Genevieve County for the collection of city taxes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second roll call, please.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Smith.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Jones.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Wolfen.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4307 now becomes ordinance 4236.
Thank you. Takes us to bill number 4308, an ordinance of the city of St. Genevieve, Missouri, authorizing a no parking restriction on both the east and west side of South 10th Street.
So that was tabled at the last meeting, so someone has to bring it off the table, right, Mark?
We decided on 100 feet on each side of the street.
So was that measured? Like someone went out there and measured it themselves? Yeah.
I measured. Well, you know, after being out there measuring it, the thought of, that's one of the main purposes of doing
Do you want me to make a motion?
Chadwell on the other end is for the tractor trailers to get in there. So the only tractor trailers that'll be coming around that corner is go to Built Vest if anything ever goes in there. So is there a need to make that no parking at this point?
That's a good question.
It's a good question, Bob.
I say yes. I mean,
Why? I mean, your tractor trailers are coming in.
there was a
off-
tractor trailer went through there today.
Well,
Went up to this.
by the time we
community
get
church.
this done, you know, approved, the other end's gonna be open, and that's where they're gonna come from, right? The only place a tractor trailer would go would be to Built Vest.
Well, let's address it now or address it later. We're
Well,
still
we
gonna have
haven't
to
even,
address it eventually,
we
probably.
haven't even moved off being tabled yet, so if we want to discuss this, we technically should make a motion, a second, to move it off table. I think.
I believe since you approved the agenda and it's on the agenda, it's off the table. I mean, it's on your agenda.
Are we all set? Okay, my
Yeah,
apologies.
because
So it's off,
it was
it's on.
tabled to this date.
So make sure it's on the table. Okay, go ahead and move forward, Bob, sorry, sir.
I mean, there's businesses in the old Lucent building now, in the back of the building, that have taken tractor trailers in there.
I agree, there's been
Come out
tractor
there
trailers.
regularly
coming-
with their own trailers, like we do.
The only question I've heard is that Lucent was in operation briefly. Bill Best was in operation for many years. Was there a problem?
There wasn't a business there. There was a
Bill Best
corner.
was in
No,
operation?
he's talking about the
You're talking
corner
about the business on the
new one.
corner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
With the
because of the
increased
beauty shop.
parking,
New beauty shop.
that's why all this was brought up, was the increased parking that is anticipated with the
Of course, they have off-street parking.
if it's ample. I mean,
That's the question.
It's pretty big. There was a lot of cars in there today.
There was cars parked on the street today.
Well, they had a
After
ribbon cutting.
After
Yeah.
the ribbon.
Well, I mean, that's not gonna be, it's,
I don't have a problem with it either way.
I've never
I'm not gonna
ever,
advocate for anything.
never ever have I seen anybody park along that wall on the one side, and I've been going through there a lot.
You know, there's now a tractor and trailer driver living in the third building there that parks in the Lucent window parking lot during the weekends.
I don't see where it's a problem doing 100 foot on each side of the
No, I
road.
don't either.
I don't
I don't see where you need more than 100 foot, because the trucks can make the turn, and that's plenty of room, so.
This won't affect the, well, I guess they already abided to the parking regulations and their special use, so.
And it's not gonna, my concern was that the residents are just past this, and 100 feet is not gonna, they could still park out in front of their houses if they wanted to, and they got off-street parking.
Yeah.
So 100 feet, that's not that far off there.
No. So did we read that?
I read it, I need a motion to,
Motion
Can I-
approved.
What was you gonna say, Gary?
I said it's like past the first driveway,
Yeah.
is 100 feet.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll second the
You'd
motion.
probably losing and 2 parking spots on one side, 1 on the other.
Yeah. So we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Takes us to new business, Bill number 4309, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2019 budget relating to the general fund budget number 10, department number 16, police.
And Sue included a
Right.
description of what these are. These are those housekeeping amendments we make at the end of each year to reconcile expenditures to budgeted line items.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bill number 4310, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2019 budget relating to the wastewater fund, budget number 31.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bill number 4311, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2019 budget relating to the rural fire fund, budget number 60.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bill number 4312, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2019 budget relating to the Transportation Trust Fund, budget number 21.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bill number 4313, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2019 budget relating to the Downtown TIF Fund, budget number 41.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bill number 4314, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2019 budget relating to the Federal Levy Fund, number 45, and the Capital Improvement Fund, number 70.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bill number 4315, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2019 budget relating to the Special Roads Fund, budget number 28.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bill number 4316, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2019 budget relating to the Debt Service Fund, budget number 50.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Takes us to Bill number 4317, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve fiscal year 2019 budget to record residual equity transitions to remove old due to froms.
Motion to approve.
This is one of those things you call the accountant on.
That's right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it takes us to Bill number 4318, an ordinance approving the budget for the City of St. Genevieve for the fiscal year 2020.
Motion to approve.
Doesn't it have to be approved as amended to include the salaries?
As amended.
I make a motion to approve as amended with the salaries with the 3% increase, option 1 to 3% option. Yes?
I have a first on the floor.
Second.
We have a second.
Before voting, we did go with each department head on the reductions that were submitted and had them identify those which they could accept without affecting the service delivery. And that was done for every department. And it's reflected in that budget.
Okay, on this first reading, I would like to have a roll call on this one.
We start on this side?
Yes. Well, no, Pam will do.
Okay, sorry, Pam.
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson?
Yes.
Alderman Donovan?
No.
Alderman Jokers?
Yes.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes.
Alderman Jones?
No.
Alderman Prince?
I will vote yes, provided we continue to work on it.
Alderman Wolfen?
No.
5 yes, 3 noes.
Thank you very much.
Paul,
Yes?
can I make a statement?
I suppose, yes.
You know, this is going to be kind of in reference to Mr. Grimminger's comments and stuff. You know, with the whole proposed budget deficit, you know, every time we have a need, we go to the taxpayers, as we've done numerous times over the past several years. I've never used the word cut. I've used some different terms and stuff, maybe evening things out, you know, bringing things more into line and stuff. But, you know, if we'd had sufficient funding here, if we could have looked at some different areas for funding, maybe we wouldn't have to beat the taxpayers up all the time.
I've been living in town for a long time, and I've been sitting with this board for 2.5 years, and the only tax increase we had, we went to the taxpayers for Proposition P. Now the sales tax, I haven't been a part of that since I've been on this, associated with the board, and I don't know when all that happened, but to make the statement all of the time,
3 times in recent memory, we went
okay,
a half cent each time.
It was voted on, wasn't it?
Sure.
Well,
But if the proper funding would have been founded before going to a vote,
they could have voted no.
well, sure, that's very true. But
And not targeting.
I don't like to put the taxpayers in a position to feel obligated to vote yes, to support, obviously, our police department, because a majority of people want to support our police department. So, of course, it was pretty close, it was a lot closer than I thought. But putting them in the position to make that there's a felt need for that money to be able to supply that, when if some tougher decisions could have been made in the first place, then it would have never been brought up. It should have never went to a vote in the first place.
so the taxpayers, shouldn't they have a voice?
Sure. Well, sure.
Well,
Sure.
the
And,
voice, all I
there
heard
has been
in
taxpayers
this
come
whole-
here and tell us that they didn't support it. I've had plenty of people call me and say they don't
Well,
support
I'll tell you
it.
what, all I've heard through this whole, we've been doing this budget for several weeks, and as far as tourism, I haven't had maybe one person get a hold of me that wanted us to cut anything. Not one, just one, and we've had ample opportunity for people to come to the meetings, and the only people that come to the meetings are people that are supporting it. So, I mean, we went to a city meeting, we had a big meeting when there was a proposition that people didn't want, and we honored them. So, and like I say, we can debate it all night long. Well said. So, thank you very much. And if there's not any other comments, I just soon move on. Thank you very much. I've got to find out where I'm at.
4320.
4319.
Bill number 4319, an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve, Code of Ordinances, deleting Chapter 100, General Provisions, Article 3, Penalty, Section 100.280, imprisonments for failure to pay fine or cost of prosecution in its entirety.
Well, it was in our ordinance. We transferred the courts to the county. There have been Supreme Court decisions and statutes passed that make this impossible. So it's just best to get it off.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Bill number 4320, an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, restricting northbound traffic onto 8th Street from Washington Street between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. Monday through Friday when school is in session.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bill number 4321, an ordinance approving the purchase of a 2019 Vacor Ramjet trailer-mounted sewer jetter from COE Equipment, Rochester, Illinois, in the amount not to exceed $58,717.86.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any other business? If there is no other business, any other business, anybody got anything else to say? Well, I'll adjourn the meeting. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much.
That's everybody.
Got a minute? Sure. I'll show you.